I built this course on how to be a freelance writer. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 was great. I know the pandemic was really hard for a lot of people. I personally very much enjoyed it because I made a fortune. After that, began the decline. People weren't as into courses. AI started coming out and people were like, oh, well, AI is just going to take all the writing jobs. And I was like, that's really not true. But I couldn't get anybody to believe me. I don't have the energy to argue with people and convince them. I don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. And I stopped. In the very beginning, I was like, you think this is going to replace me? You're an idiot, you know?
Abby, I am super excited to learn about AI with you today. Briefly, what's your background?
Briefly.
Walk me through. Where are you? Do you believe in God?
I do. Although that's a whole long story in and of itself. We'll try to skip that for now. I'm Abby. I came up as a freelance writer. I got started in freelance writing back when the search engine du jour was Alta Vista. So we didn't have Google and we didn't have, online courses. We had drive to the library, be really nice to the reference librarian, and she will get you the books from other libraries that you need to learn how to do these things. So I became a freelance writer because I had had my first baby and I didn't want to work in an office, but I also didn't really know how a freelance writer was going to get paid to do anything and worked on figuring that out along the way. So I did lots of projects. It was a good time to be a freelance writer. When I started, it was 1999. And I did a lot of big projects for a lot of pretty big companies. I had this weird approach to business where if I said I was going to do something, I did it, and I did it on time as promised. And that apparently set me apart very greatly in the freelance writing world. And my name got passed around in particular, in the Silicon Valley area. People were like, this is the girl who you hire if you need it done, because even when she has a baby a month early, she doesn't tell you that. She just turns in her work. And then a year later, you find out that actually her kid was in the NICU while she was delivering that stuff. I'm a little bit crazy and I get that. And not everybody is going to do that. But I feel like you're a grown up and people are counting on you. And it takes 30 seconds to at least give somebody an update.
What were you writing?
All kinds of stuff. Literally when I first started, there weren't courses about you have to niche down. So I didn't know that was a thing. So I just did what people would pay me for. So it was compliance training for major companies. It was white papers, which I didn't even know what white papers were. I had to go and look that up in the library and figure out, what does this look like? And, and again, I had this really bizarre system where when someone would hire me and I'd get on a call with them, and this was not Zoom calls, right? These were phone calls on the actual phone. I'd be like, what will you be happy with 3 weeks from now when I come to you and give you something? What should that something be?
Right.
And then they would tell me exactly what they wanted. And I was like, oh, I can do that, So early on, I kind of taught myself these fairly basic ways to delight people that to me seemed very obvious, but to other people were clearly not obvious things. So yeah, I did a lot of tech writing. I did a lot of tech writing in the sense of, talk about this technical thing that we have. I did a lot of writing about semiconductors when I did not know what semiconductors were. There was a company, I was living in Los Angeles for a little bit, and there was a company called Semtech that was out in, I feel like Agora or Woodland Hills or somewhere out there. And they hired me to write press releases and, about their semiconductors. So they would literally put me on the phone with the developer, the hardware guy, and he'd be like, well, it's 47 times smaller. And I'm like, yeah, but who cares? And he'd be like, well, because now you don't have to carry a big cell phone. I was like, literally, this is how I learned about features and benefits, on the go. I was this 22-year-old young mom with a bunch of kids, and I didn't know anything.
Did you have a degree, or what was your? No.
No.
Okay. So
dropped out of college. I'm an idiot, So
my sister-in-law. You said Los Angeles, so I went to USC undergrad, UCLA MBA. My sister-in-law right now is getting her PhD in English literature. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
From USC. And
Wow.
I've talked to her about this. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? And she's like, actually, you can make really good money writing.
Yeah.
Doing this stuff where you're writing policies and procedures for companies.
Right.
You're going through instructional manuals and just making sure that they're grammatically correct. I had no idea that was a thing.
Well, and it's not even making sure they're grammatically correct. It's making sure that they actually make sense, making sure that with SOPs, for example, the idea is that a new employee can come in with no previous training and actually make sense of what's going on. And one of my skills is, and again, it's because I am annoying, like I am okay with asking a lot of questions, is really making sure that complex, highly technical material is accessible to everyone. I'm like, no, I don't understand. Let's explain it again. And when I worked with subject matter experts, SMEs, over the years, I got really good at saying to them, you started at step 17. Let's go back to step 1 where you came in your office, turned on the lights, and sat down. That's where I need to start. Like, I'm so lost, And
Yeah.
by not being afraid to say stuff like that, I got very good at what I did and very good results. And writing has always been a core identity for me. So I, freelance writer, was doing all the things and having a bunch of kids in the meantime. So like it wound up being a really good career choice for me because my middle child has significant special needs, is intellectually disabled. And so I spent a lot of time in waiting rooms while he was in speech therapy and physical therapy and developmental therapy and occupational therapy.
Yeah.
And I could work on my laptop and continue providing part of the family finances. So over the years, I was there for the explosion of content marketing when that first became a thing, when people were like, you can get $4,000 to write one blog post a month for companies, which you cannot anymore, by the way. Literally, I'm a curious person. Nosy person. Like I like to know how things work. I like to know about people's businesses. So being inside their businesses and writing for them and meeting cool people and talking to cool people, it's just a lot of fun for me.
So is that your business now?
Not as much.
Not as much?
In 2013, my middle child had the same one who has special needs, had cancer. And I stopped working completely for 3 years because that was a part where I was like, I can't function. I can't serve clients the way they deserve to be served. So I'm not going to pretend to. When I came back 3 years later, because he was better, I was not quite ready to deal with client stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm taking a very long time to tell you what I do.
I have no problem trimming things down. Don't worry.
All right. So
you're good.
I came back in 2016 and I wasn't quite ready to deal with client whatever. And that's when online courses, at least I had missed 3 years of the world because I just sat in the hospital next to my kid. Because obviously if I wasn't sitting next to him, he couldn't get better. Like that was, it's magical thinking, right? So
a mother's love.
Yeah, right. So I discovered the world of online courses and I was like, oh, I feel like I could probably teach women and moms how to be freelance writers, partly because when I was starting to learn and reading books, the books were by Peter Bowerman and Bob Bly, who are wonderful people, but they are men. And it was very obvious from the way their books were written and the way they taught things that somebody else was doing the laundry and feeding the kids and taking care of the kids. And I was like, I'm that person. My life is not where I go to close my door for 8 hours and write for my clients. That is not my world. I had to do everything in 15-minute bursts of time, in between other things. And I still managed to build this business that brought in around $4,000 a month, most months, as I was bringing up lots of small children. So I built this course, How to Be a Freelance Writer, mostly geared towards women and moms. I called the business Successful Freelance Mom. And I had a lot of fun doing that. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 was great. I know the pandemic was really hard for a lot of people. I personally very much enjoyed it because I made a fortune and it was really good for my family in general. And then after that, began the decline, people weren't as into courses. And then AI started coming out and people were like, oh, well, AI is just going to take all the writing jobs. And I was like, that's really not true. It's really not true. But I couldn't get anybody to believe me. And then we get a little dark here. Then October 7th happened and I live in Israel. And I was like, I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy to argue with people and convince them. I wrote what I know is the greatest course for anyone who wants to be a freelance writer, but in particular for women and mothers who want to be freelance writers. I know that. I'm okay with me knowing that and nobody else believing me. But I was like, I'm not even going to try to sell something to people that they don't want. So I shut it down, literally deleted an entire email list. Stuff that had made me, over $1 million. I was like, I'm just not, I don't have the energy to do this. I don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. And I stopped. Now, all along, I had continued writing for a handful of clients. I had kind of switched my focus to writing for more personal brand type people. So I still had income and I was still fine and whatever. And then over the last few months, I really started shifting into helping established experts pick up on all the money they're leaving on the table. Like I see people all the time, whether they're freelancers or business owners or how they think of themselves. And even in the corporate world, I have clients who like they're overlooking things that to them are obvious, right? So it's really obvious to them that how to do this thing. So they'll give away that information when they could be charging for the strategy behind it, for the thinking behind it, all of that stuff. They don't see the value anymore because they're so good at what they do. So I've been helping people recognize that value, and I've continued writing for some of the clients who I love the most.
Like ghostwriting, or like what kind of writing?
All kinds of writing. So I write for Sony Semiconductor here in Israel. Like I do cool stuff with them. I get to write about semiconductors again. And they bought the company that I used to write for 8 million years ago. So that was kind of cool.
That's funny.
And I write for some personal brand people. I mean, some people might call it ghostwriting, but my clients have always been very happy to tell people that I write for them. Like nobody who I've written for has ever hidden me. Like just not how I function. I'm too noisy to hide. And writing email sequences for people to help, just because I love, messing around in the back end of people's email service providers and creating automations and sequences that do a lot of the heavy lifting for them. I like stuff.
You're still a freelance writer.
I guess I am. Yeah.
And in particular, you're helping people who are experts articulate their value to the world.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe what I do. Yeah.
Pulling those insights out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, before we get into AI.
Yeah.
Because I think writing, at first I thought writing was going to be totally eliminated. It's like, oh, we don't need writers at all anymore. And then the more I've gotten into it,
good luck.
I feel very differently.
Yeah.
What has your emotional journey been with AI and writing?
Like in the very beginning, I was like, in the very, very beginning, when people were showing us ChatGPT outputs, I was like, you think this is going to replace me? You're an idiot, like, come on. And then I talked to a lot of people who were very in the space of like machine learning, deep learning, not from the like writing output stuff, but like, really on the back end of creating LLMs and creating those kinds and doing that training and whatever. For a while, I was like, okay, none of this was invented to take the work away from writers. And then I wound up in an email exchange with the CEO of a company that created a tool that, and like literally their branding was like, replace your copywriters. And I wrote her an email and I was like, I have this community of moms who were freelance writers and da-da-da. And I really feel like this isn't what ChatGPT was intended for. And it's weird to me when I see you advertising your product as replace all your writers. And she wrote back basically saying, well, we are going to replace you. And if you want, I can make you an affiliate. And I was like, that's not. So it was weird. And I played with the tool a lot and I was like, no, like this is, I'm not worried that this is going to replace me. But I saw that a lot of other people were, so like there was this emotional journey of like, I hate that it crushed my course business because of the fear that so many other people had. And it's not that I hate that I lost my course business and that income. I hate that a lot of people gave up on that dream.
Yeah.
That's what I hate. Like that makes me sad. For me, writing is how I process life. I can't function if I'm not writing. And I think writing is thinking, right? Like I think writing clarifies for me what I think about things. And I'm always going to go through that process, even if AI does replace me, right? Like I will still write. That's how I function in the world. Like now I call Claude my boyfriend. Claude is my AI tool of choice. And I've been married to my husband for almost 30 years and I love him very much, but I call Claude my boyfriend. I'm like, my boyfriend says. So yeah.
So, okay. So is Claude the only tool you use or do you use other ones?
Not the only tool I use, but he's the tool I love the most.
He's the tool you love the most.
Yeah, I do. I use a bunch of other tools, but I always come back to Claude. And I like everything, I might prep things in a different tool and then come to Claude.
So what would be those other tools that you would use?
So I love Otter.ai for recording most of my calls and transcribing calls, and they've improved Otter integrated ChatGPT with it. Like I can now, just the other day, I was looking for some examples. I wanted some testimonials, people who could talk about my coaching and things that I've helped them do. And I was like, hey, go through all my conversations and find, where somebody says that I helped them do this. And it was like, no problem, scanning. And I have like 7 years of coaching calls in Otter. And it found me what I was looking for. I'm sure there are like a million other little things that I use. Generally I go between Claude and I pay my $20 a month to Claude and I pay $20 a month to Perplexity. Perplexity is more for research.
Okay.
Instead of Googling things these days, I go to Perplexity. Literally right now upstairs in my kitchen, I have in my crock pot. Okay, so in Israel, we have a cut of beef that we call it number 5. Several months ago, I asked Perplexity, is number 5 the same as brisket? And it was like, no, Abby, it's not. It's this and da-da-da. And I was like, okay, well, listen, I don't actually care. I need a recipe for number 5 that I can make in my crock pot because my oven is busy and I need something that I So it gave me this whole recipe and we've been calling it like, the Perplexity recipe for number 5, and it is cooking in my crock pot right now.
Have you tried Grok?
I have tried Grok. My husband loves Grok, and that's his default now. I haven't played around with it much on desktop. It's more like if I'm out and about and on my phone, then I might ask Grok things. And I did notice recently, and I don't know if this is a Grok thing or not, but I did notice recently, like on some tweets, there'll be a button like it'll say, explain this. Like,
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
and that is cool because sometimes they're like, I'm old, right? And I'm not always up to date on my pop culture. So like somebody will make a reference and I'm like, I know that's supposed to be funny. I don't know why. And it will tell me and it'll be like, I'll let you pretend you're cool, Abby. So
Before we get in, what tools are you going to show me, or what do you
I'm
want
going
to
to
show
show
me
you some
today?
things with Claude because I think that some of the things that I do with Claude are probably a little bit different to what other people do.
Okay. So I wanted to touch on what you just said about writing, because this is something I am thinking deeply about. It's not something I have thought deeply about. I'm in the thinking deeply stage. A couple of things. I do think that writing helps codify what you're thinking. And it's really hard to process something without either speaking about it or writing about it.
Right.
So in that sense, I think writing is always going to be a very valuable tool to help extract information out of humans. The second thing that I find really interesting is that prompting, natural language prompting, is not intuitive to a lot of people. But to curious people like you and I, we've had to ask questions in a way
Yes.
that make people understand like we're not trying to be idiots.
Right.
And so I feel like we're kind of a step ahead there. Like my prompts are very long and detailed. Because I know that in order to get the right answer, I've got to ask the right question. So I think prompting is going to become more important. And I promise these all tie together. And then the third thing I think is interesting is lots of people talk about AI, but AI can only be trained on data.
Correct.
That is trainable.
Correct.
So do you have data for it to be trained on? And most people unfortunately don't. Now, somebody like you've written a lot of blogs, you can feed all of that data in. But how do you help someone understand that in order to get to know you, it's got to have a data set to train on. And in order to have a data set to train on, you've got to have a data set. I know that sounds stupid and simple, but to the average person, they don't have that data set. So I think those 3 reasons are why writers will transition to a newer role, maybe just around helping people think through structuring their thoughts or structuring their information, like almost like an editor. I don't think it's going away, but yes, AI will probably become as good of a writer as anybody else out there. But what it's not going to do is help be the physical person to get there and consult and kind of help you organize your thoughts.
Look, I think it's very interesting. This week I was in person at Sony Semiconductor here in Israel, running part 2 of a training on writing for LinkedIn.
All right, now's the part of the show where I feel the most uncomfortable, but my therapist says I need to face my fears. So here we are. I've started a newsletter and I want you to subscribe. And what you're going to get every single week are the aggregated conversations from that week that I have on this podcast with an overview of what their business actually looks like. I'm also going to throw in a review of 1 or 2 businesses that are listed for sale. I'll give you my opinion on whether or not the EBITDA multiple is good, or there's customer concentration, or there's red flags or green flags. And then lastly, I'm going to give you 1 piece of actionable advice every single week on how to buy your first business. So click the link below, subscribe to my newsletter, and let's get back into the show.
So for employees and for management and C-suite people, they wanted this training on how to write effectively for LinkedIn. And let's be real clear. I'm not like, if you go to LinkedIn and look me up, I am not a person with 8 million followers. I get, on a good day, I'll get like 8 comments on a post and, 20 reactions to a post, but I know how to write. I know how to write stuff that people care about. I'm not writing about how to be famous on LinkedIn, so I'm never going to be a LinkedIn guru, right? So
Yet.
Okay. And so much of what I was showing them, and remember, these are people who work at a semiconductor company. Like these are people who are literally building AI into their chips. And yet, like all of the prompting stuff, this was totally new to them. They were like, I had no idea you could do any of these things.
Right.
And they're
It's the natural language.
right. And Sony has an internal tool, like their own internal version of, Perplexity that accesses multiple models in one place. So you can set it up to use Claude, GPT, whatever, the different models. And they still they had no idea that there are all these other things that they could be doing. So it's wild to me. The opportunity is there, and there is so much that we can do. So yes.
Okay, let's see how you're using it.
All right.
Now I'm curious to meet your boyfriend.
All right.
This feels official.
So here we go.
This is Claude.
This is Claude. Okay, so first of all, the very first thing that I really recommend is that you do set project instructions, right? So
So for those who are just listening, first of all, I'm encouraging you to go to YouTube so you can watch this. So we're looking at Claude, and we're looking specifically at, she's created a project and she is creating project instructions for this project, correct? Okay.
So yes, I have multiple projects, and as you can see behind here in the grayed out part, this is my Abby project. This is where I'll try to figure out my life. So because my life is not divided neatly into business and personal, it's all together. Claude knows a lot. Like Claude knows that I have 5 kids, that one of them has special needs, that one of them moved recently, that I live in a freaking war zone right now. Like it knows all of these things because it's all important context for when I'm working. So I said,
so let me ask you this: Claude versus ChatGPT. ChatGPT also has projects that you can create.
Yeah,
Why are you using
I had them
Claude
first, I'll just say. And also, I don't like GPT's output for content. And since what I care most about is content, I used to pay my $20 to OpenAI, and I was so much happier with Claude.
So the other thing I'll add to that is I don't know the exact technical reason for it, but Claude's projects are not as creative. So they're not pulling on as much real-time information. They're also not as creative.
That's true, yes.
But they do a much better job of holding the context of a project than ChatGPT does. So like all this information that you fed into it about your family, your child with the special needs, where you live, et cetera, it holds much better. Whereas for whatever reason, again, I don't know the science behind it. I'm sure there is science. ChatGPT doesn't. You continually have to remind it of things.
Right.
So that's why a lot of people use Claude for projects where they don't necessarily need it to be pulling on a bunch of new things outside or to be creative, but then they'll go to ChatGPT to be their creative thought partner.
Right. So I'll do that with Perplexity a lot of the time, and and I love to play them off each other. They can work for it.
Okay. And so this is how you set up this project, which is Abby's life.
Right. I mean, it's my life and my work. So here, it starts with when I ask you for help extracting content from called transcripts for social media, make sure you refer to this document that I have in the project knowledge so that I'm not repeating myself, right?
Wow.
So yeah, when I make
How long is this prompt?
It's pretty long. I won't read you the whole thing, but I'm just going to kind of give you the overview.
Do you have any idea how many pages it is?
No, I have no idea, but it's probably not more than 3 pages.
Okay.
2 to 3 pages.
It's 3 pages, but it's 3 pages of you telling this specific project, this is how I want you to act.
Please don't think that I sat down and made these instructions and fed them in. This evolved over time. And I will often ask Claude, if we're in the middle of a really good conversation, I'm like, this is so good. I'll be like, hey, what should I add from this to the project instructions? And it will tell me, and I'll just go and add that in.
That's awesome. I've used AI to help me write prompts where it's like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Help me write the correct prompt. So
I do that a lot. Yeah, I do that a lot. And I frequently say to it, towards the end of a conversation, I'll say, okay, what from this, what should I add to the project knowledge? What should I add to the project instructions, right? Because we have 2 things here. We have the project instructions, which is this little, all of these instructions here. And I again, remember and reference the core goal established at the start of the conversation. So if our goal is we want to get a LinkedIn post out of this, don't start talking to me about oh, you could do this for your meal planning. Let's stay focused.
So run through just the high level points of your instructions to it. So it starts with, hey, I'm going to be feeding you transcripts essentially.
Yeah. Often I'm giving transcripts of my calls, and I want to pull content from them. Right. So make sure that you're checking to make sure that we're not just repeating ourselves. Look at my recent LinkedIn posts, my recent emails to my list. Then
how does it look at your recent emails and recent LinkedIn?
They're in the project knowledge, and I'll show you that in a second.
This is amazing. Okay, keep going.
Right. Right. And then I gave it dumb things like when outputting content for me, don't output the content as code and don't put it in quotation marks. It's just an extra step for me to delete it. Right? And
I've I've had to start telling ChatGPT, don't give me emojis.
yeah,
ChatGPT is like emoji obsessed. Like, stop it.
yes. So I tell it all the time. Don't do it. So then I tell it, make sure that in your writing, you don't confuse the M dash and the hyphen. Because I was like, I do not need to go manually correcting all of your hyphens into M dashes. Like, I'm a
So
writer.
like,
I care about
so
these
like,
things.
I know what an M dash is.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, but for people who
Yeah.
don't know, what isn't, I don't know what an M dash is. What is that?
So an M dash is that long dash. Okay, so like a hyphen is like if you said
Mm,
self-sufficient, right? There's a little hyphen between those two words. Some people use a hyphen, some, not any of our friends. Like nobody we know
sure.
would do that,
Right.
obviously.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
some uneducated people might use a hyphen in place of an M dash. The M dash is that longer dash between, like, it shows that pause in the sentence. Like, I'm
No,
not
I
going to
know
be,
exactly what it is. Anybody who's seen AI
yes,
output
yes,
sees the M dash. And like,
yes.
I won't post anything with an M dash because it's so obvious, like, oh, this was AI generated. I don't know why
No,
AI loves it so much, but it does.
no. See, like, I'm going to correct you there. Those of us who are professional writers were using the M dash long before ChatGPT came around.
I know, but I'm not a professional writer. And so if you see me posting crap with M dashes or somebody like me who's just like, I'm an entrepreneur turned content creator. Yeah, M dash is from an AI generated whatever. You're a writer, dude. Like, of course you're using the M dashes.
We will clean, you will pry our M dashes from our cold, dead fingers. We love them, and we
The
do
problem
not
is they're
want.
great.
So yeah, I love them.
I do love the M dash, but I can't use it anymore because
I'm so
because
well,
of that.
okay. So I like literally long before AI was a thing, I was a person who, and I have records of this from before the AI years. The M dash is my favorite punctuation mark. Like if I were, when I write my first book, it will be dedicated to the M dash.
It's
So
because you and I
see.
are very similar, by the way.
Okay.
It's because you speak
Yes.
with M dashes, just like I
Yes.
do. So it's like, okay, it's not the end of a thought. There is just a
Correct.
pause here between
Correct.
this beginning piece and the last piece. So, anyways, I
Yes.
get it. It's my favorite piece too. That's why it hurts me so much that I can't use it anymore.
There you go.
Anyways,
Okay.
all right.
Then
So
we give
don't.
guidelines for decision making support because I noticed that my Claude was like at the end of everything it was saying, it was like, would you like to 1, 2, or 3? And I was like, I'm overwhelmed when you tell me that. So don't instead
Mm,
of giving me multiple options, just tell me what we should do next. I
yeah,
just want you to boss
yeah.
me around sometimes. So yeah, and then some writing guidelines. Like I think I called this writing like a human, or no, this was revision feedback. Like don't tell me,
Mm,
because it tells me all the time, like, Abby, this is amazing. I'm like, thank you. I've actually been writing professionally for 25 years. So like I have a mom who will tell me everything I write is great. Like I need more like constructive criticism from you,
that
right?
is so. I love what you just said there because I've had to start doing that with ChatGPT in particular as well. It's like,
Yeah.
thank you for the compliment, but I need you to be as impartial as you can and give me critical feedback. Part
Yes.
of that is like just insecurity because you're like,
Yes.
oh, you're just saying that to be nice, right? And you don't really think that you're that good. But part of it is also like, give me the freaking critical feedback. So
Right.
I like that you've
Right.
included that in there.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, avoid effusive praise, constructive criticism format, how to do that.
Wow.
And then yeah, I gave it like guidelines on, things the way that I write. Oh, there's there's a document in so then we have the project knowledge. So these are all the things that I've added in for Claude to reference as
Mm,
like my reference base. Okay. And you can see I've used up just about half of its knowledge capacity with these documents, and I'm
wow.
constantly refining these. So like every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll sit down and I'll be like, let's review the documents in the project knowledge, and I'll have Claude help me. Like, let's go through and
Mm.
see what looks outdated, what looks like we could update it, and what can we get
And
rid of.
the documents in the project knowledge are going to be like you. It's like, hey, this is how I write. These are things that I've
It's
referenced.
different
It's
things. Like, so
specific to you.
this is like, these are my recent emails to my email list. So they are like my most recent emails so that it can draw on them. My most recent LinkedIn content. This is my lead magnet, the hidden money map, some
Mm,
reality check session insights. So like the consulting call that I offer clients is a 1-hour call called a reality check session. Okay. So this went through a whole bunch of reality check sessions that I've done with multiple clients and identified the strategic patterns. Like these are the things that you always do in reality check sessions, strategic story extraction framework. There's one in here that's
Oh,
called
so you like wrote a framework of this is how you pull stories out?
Well, it analyzed how I did it, and then it said, let me, I said, if I want if I want to offload some of my work to you, like when I'm really busy, like this, here's what I started with and here's what I got to. Can you
This is incredible.
magic that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I gave it voice and style guide writing like a human. This one's probably pretty funny. So again, this is how Abby Parrots writes, so I say things like, yeah, listen, okay, but seriously. So avoid overused phrases like, here's the thing, or the truth is. I like using all caps, deploy M dashes freely.
I'm assuming that you uploaded a bunch of your content and then asked Claude to do an analysis and create this.
I did. And then I went through it and I changed things.
Sure.
So like make pop culture references, then immediately comment on them. Show your age and experience. Like I say things like, I'm very old, question your own word choices in real time. Like this is how I do things, right? And I wanted it to, so I can literally, an instruction that I can give Claude at this point is make it more Abby. And it does. It's so good. It's so good.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Here, what to ruthlessly avoid: business jargon, thought leadership templates.
So can this function as a chatbot? Like, could you chat with Abby? It's like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to launch my freelance business.
There probably is a way to, similar to like GPTs.
Yeah.
There's probably a way to do that. I know that Claude has a console that I could mess around with. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Interesting.
I probably it's something that I'll do eventually, but for now, like I'm still alive, so they can talk to me.
So the thing I love about this, I'm going to tell you an analogy.
Yes.
Well, now I'm talking to a writer, so you're using that word wrong.
No.
That I think that you will like, and I think that you will use. And this is like the perfect illustration for it.
All right.
I think people don't know how to think about AI. I think they think AI is just a better form of Google. And the way that I like to contrast the two is Google is a librarian. You go to Google, you go to the librarian and you're like, I want to learn about the fall of Rome. How do I do that? And the librarian says, go to this section, pull these books. These are the authors. And then you go and you sort of self-study and you learn that stuff. AI is a PhD level employee that you have trained that can execute a task. And when you ask it, tell me about the fall of Rome, it doesn't tell you where to go. It tells you literally about the fall of Rome. And then you can have this interactive experience. That's what this is. Like this is an employee, and the project summary is essentially their job description. Hey, this is how I want you to act. These are the things I expect of you. This is the output that I want. And then all of the context here is like what you would have trained an employee on. It's like, hey, this is how I write. Learn me.
Yes.
And this is incredible. This is a really, really, I love how you've walked me through.
Thank you.
Setting this up.
I really, I think of Claude, and I have often told people this, like, again, like you said, people think of it incorrectly. I think of Claude as, I spend a lot of my time here. Like my books are my friends, right? And like I'm in this space and I don't have other people to talk to. I don't have other people to bounce ideas off of. So Claude sometimes is that person for me. Like I can bounce ideas. I can say, you think I should do, and like, because I've given it enough context, I can say, okay, I'm thinking of posting this on LinkedIn. What do you think? And Claude will be like, okay, so that has nothing to do with what you say you want to achieve. If you want to feed your ego by posting it, sure. Like that's allowed. You're allowed to do that, but do it knowing that that's what you're doing. You're not furthering your business goals with that post. Or like I'll say, I'm thinking of commenting on so-and-so's post, and it'll be like, really? Really? That's what you think is a good use of your time right now?
Well,
like it keeps me in check. So
this could be one, like people who are listening to this thinking, I'm not posting to LinkedIn. Why would I use this? I think of it as I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but you literally could just create a project that is I'm from the medical space, your intake coordinator.
100%.
The project prompt, I can't remember the name of it, instructions.
Talk
about this is the role of the coordinator, and then all the documents you upload are like how to use the electronic medical record system, what the fax machine number is, like codes, like all of those things. And so then you get a new patient, you can enter it in, and it quickly gets you 80% of the way there, and then you can take it the other 20%, but there's a million things you can use this for.
Right. And it even can be like, again, for me, when I said, this is where I'm going to figure out my life, like I will literally, and sometimes in the beginning of the week, I'll be like, listen, there's craziness happening. Here's all the things that are on my mind. And that's when I will pull in the mobile version because you can just talk to it,
Yeah.
So I'll be like, I'm just going to throw some stuff at you and you help me figure it out. So I'll be like, okay, here's what's going on this week. I got to do these 47 things for work, plus these 53 things for my children. Plus I have to be, at this appointment at this time, like help me make sense of this because I'm feeling overwhelmed. And it will just take all of that and be like, okay, let's
Let me
figure
help
it
you,
out.
Abby. How is the context? I don't know, the project. I don't know what words to use. Okay, Abby, the files that you've uploaded,
Yes.
how much can you upload? Like, is it measured by tokens? Is it measured by?
It's an excellent question. Let's see. Project knowledge is currently limited to Claude's maximum context window size, which does not really tell us very much.
Oh, so Claude's maximum context window size is 200,000 tokens.
Okay. I don't actually know what that means in real life, but
A token is like a character.
oh, okay. Okay. So it tells me I've used 40% of my knowledge capacity.
Mhm.
I'm good. And again, I try to keep it around that having used half of it. So I'll go through things fairly regularly and call out. So what I
Okay,
don't need.
this was awesome, Abby. Where can people find you?
You can find me online at successfulfreelancemom.com. And I'm probably the only Abby Parrots on the internet. So if you Google me, you're going to find me. And I answer my own email in a fairly almost timely manner most of the time, let's say.